in the fellow craftsman's degree, which is the second degree of Freemasonry, there are 5 things which are required, which are mastery of emotional outbursts of all kinds, to maintain poise under testing and trying conditions, to maintain kindness in the face of all unkindness, and simplicity with accompanying power. And simplicity, it said that simplicity comes with power. And number 2 is the mastery of animal energies, the curbing of all passion and desire, and control over the lower nature. And this is like complete control over the lower nature. Now, like when I was initiated into the craft, my initiation automatically sorted that out for me. It's pretty much like a transition from living in a very physical way to living in a completely spiritual way, and living from the heart instead of from the body and senses in a way. And then the senses became more like open doorways to experience rather than an understanding, rather than the processes of living so much, if that makes sense. Number 3 is the understanding and mastery of the creative forces of to the spiritual nature, and proper understanding of their physical application. And I think the creative forces are what we kind of discussed in the first one, but it's a mastery of them to being a spiritual person. And then number 4 is transmutation of personal affection into impersonal compassion. So you no longer sort of desire necessarily interpersonal relationships, although you can choose that, but you more are filled with a kind of universal consciousness, and what would you describe as kind of like unconditional love for all people and things. It says personalities cannot bind the fellow, for he realizes that all potential manifestations or all personal manifestations are generated by impersonal principles. Number 5, he realizes that the 5 senses are actually keys to human problems, and the proper application of these give him material for spiritual transmutation. And I definitely felt like that. Like my senses became supercharged in the way of awareness. Like they became portals to psychic awareness, portals to spiritual awareness. And if you apply them to the common divisor of analogy, which is comparison between one thing and another for the purpose of clarifying or explaining something, then you can spiritually transmute things. And this is also the law of correspondence in Hermetics. And then moving on, we have the final phase. I say final, but this is the final phase that people can teach you. And this is becoming a Master Mason, which is the 3rd degree. And the 3rd degree ritual is a very intense ritual. You are put under extreme scrutiny. You are put under, in some ways, quite a painful situation. In many ways, it becomes quite extremely painful. It's like extreme pain to the soul. And a true test of character, and you either fail or pass at this point. There is no in between, and if you pass, there's no turning back. You can't unknow what you begin to know at this stage. And it says, through years of labour, he is not old in years, but in wisdom and understanding, and he has now found the staff of life and truth on which he leans. He no longer depends on the words of others, but upon the still inner voice that speaks from the heart of his own being. And then it says, many a child comes into the world a Master Mason, and the spiritual light of the Master Mason is greater because he has evolved a higher vehicle for its expression in the world. Every action and emotion basically serves illumination. And it says the mind is the highest form of the Master Mason's expression, and he passes into a dark inner room illuminated only by the fruits of reason. He stands between the glowing fire and the world. Through him passes the Hydra, the great snake, and from its mouth pours down to man the light of God. His symbol is the rising sun, and in him the globe of day has risen in all its splendour from the darkness of night. And that's kind of like an analogy of the transformation, spiritual transformation that happens during the third degree, when the initiation's realised and it's actually happened. It says one stone must be placed. Okay, this is how the initiation happens. One stone must be placed, but this he cannot find. Somewhere it has been concealed. In prayer he kneels, wishing that the powers that be aid him in his search. The light of the sun suddenly shines upon him and bathes him in a splendour celestial. A voice speaks from the heavens saying, "If the temple is finished, and in my faithful master is found the missing stone." Both the points of the compass are now lifted from the square. The heart and mind is now liberated from the symbol of mortality, and emotion and thought unite for the glorification of the greatest. The sun and the moon unite, and the Hermetic degree is now consummated. The Master Mason is afforded opportunities far beyond the reach of the ordinary man now, but must not fail to realise, with every opportunity comes a great cosmic responsibility. It's far worse to know and not do than never to have known at all. Avoiding responsibility is no longer a choice. All problems must be met and sorted. It says, through dying he has learned to live. He is in truth an example of God's plan. The greatest sermon he can now preach, the greatest lesson he can now teach, a living proof of the eternal. The Master is not ordained, but the product of cause and effect. None but those who live the cause can produce the effect. The Master Mason, if he truly be one, is in communication with the unseen powers that move the destinies of life. He no longer follows the direction of others, but only his own tracing board, lays out the plans for his brothers. Every line and plan inspired by the divine chord within him. I definitely felt that was the case. Like, somehow the power within the self raised during the initiation is so powerful that you don't tend to rely on other people's opinions anymore, because you have found approval from something higher, and you know that you are loved. Like, what I felt was just absolute unconditional love. Oh, thanks, Tony. Hi, Duckins. So, where did I get to? It says, the Master Mason's glorious opportunity to be a factor in the spiritual growth of others comes before all else. At the seat of mercy he kneels, a faithful servant of the light in himself, and worthy to be given control over the lives of others by having first control over himself. The true Master Builder never lost the word of God, but cherishes it in the locket of his own being, and that is where it's hidden. Like it says there, one stone must be placed, but this he cannot find. And how many people in the world actually feel truly 100% complete? That's the locket in the self. It's concealed. I don't know where it's concealed actually, but I would say it's concealed in the heart. And it says, from those who have the eyes to see, nothing is concealed. To those who have the right to know, all things are open books. Nothing has ever been concealed from those who earned the right to know, nor it has ever been revealed to those who have not prepared a worthy shrine on earth to obtain it. The Master, the Philosopher's Stone, in the Master the Philosopher's Stone is placed. It is the heart of the phoenix which rises with renewed youth from the ashes of its burned body. And it does certainly feel like that. It feels like a complete transformation where your old body and your soul gets burnt up, and you're given a brand new soul, born into what feels like pure white light, vibration, love, divinity. It says, when his heart is pure and white as a diamond, he becomes the living jewel in the crown. And the star in the Masonic Lodge. And then it says, he now holds in his hands the triple keys and wears the triple crown of the ancient Magi, for he is in truth the king of heaven, earth and hell. Salt, sulphur and mercury are the elements of his work. That's referring again to transmutation and alchemy. With the philosophical Mercury seeks to blend all powers to one glorifying end, and there are further spiritual initiations to this behind the blue veil, which divides the seen from the unseen. And there, robed in the lambskin of a purified body, the soul radiating the light of spirit becomes a living star in the blue canopy of the lodge. And I think that's true. I really, in some ways, felt that when I was initiated, that it was a really, really big deal. Like, I literally felt like I'd found a meaning to life, that this was all there was, that the meaning of life was life, and I was now living, and before I was asleep, I was like not living, and I wasn't awake, and then I was awake, and I could suddenly see things that I had not seen before on the spiritual level. Like, we have physical eyes and we see physical objects, but when I was initiated, I started seeing the souls of things and started seeing the unseen things and started feeling inside myself the unsaid things. And so it really grew my psychic awareness really overnight. And before that, I'd say that I'd had some premonitions and things like that. I'd had some very psychic dreams, but I'd not actually done much psychic development. And then, so that's pretty much it. That's the 3 Masonic degrees, and it talks about transmutation again. Masonry is eternal truth. Personified, idealized yet made simple. Virtue is its priest. Patience is its warden, and illumination is its master. Truth is divine, and not to be desecrated or defamed by the thoughtlessness of its keepers. It says the all-seeing eyes upon him, day and night. What does it say? I can't even read my own writing. I think it's sort of measuring his depths and seeing into the innermost soul of souls, judging his life, reading his thoughts, and measuring his aspirations, and rewarding his sincerity. So, and then it talks about the dangers of being initiated as well. The spirit is now with him and measures the mason in the world. The spirit is with him when he buys and sells. It's with him in his home. It's the silent witness to every transaction in his life and the silent partner to every master. The valley of Jehoshaphat waits for him. I'm assuming this is hell, who is false to any creature as surely as it waits for the breakers of the cosmic oath. And they do say like it's really dangerous almost to be to have your initiation, because you have to live up to the principles, and if you don't live up to the principles, life gets really bad. And so it says the true Mason realizes his duty is with all the kingdoms of nature, and he would rather die than fail in his duty. They give up the worship of personalities. They don't worship celebrities. All forms of material affairs are of no consequence, of no importance to him compared to the spiritual life unfolding. And worldly expressions are basically, or those who allow appearances and worldly expressions to deter them are basically failures in Masonry. So above all, spirituality is placed as the highest, and everything falls in line after that. It says, when the world of form with its false concepts are swept away, one basic truth remains, that all are builders, labouring towards, consciously or unconsciously, a single end. No mason can be narrow. There is no place for little minds in a great work. He must develop the power of observation and seek in the manifestations of nature the things he lost because he failed to work for them. He must study human nature, seeing in those around him the unfolding expressions of their own spiritual unfoldment. The true Mason enters the lodge with one thought uppermost. How can I, as an individual, be of greater use in the universal plan? What can I do to be worthy enough to comprehend the mysteries? How can I build the eyes to see the things concealed from the profane? The true Mason is supremely unselfish in every expression. And applications of the powers entrusted to him. No brother seeks anything for himself, but unselfishly labours for the good of all. So, it does say something here. It says destructive action is actually a living curse. A narrow mind is a strangled cord around the throat of God. All Masons know their work is not secret, yet must remain unknown to all those who do not live the Masonic life. If the secrets of Freemasonry were shouted from the rooftops, the fraternity would be completely safe, for certain and particular spiritual qualities are necessary for Masonic understanding. Hence all exposures cannot injure the fraternity. They reveal only the outward form and the ceremonies. Only those who have been weighed and found to be true and upright, and the square has prepared themselves for the greater knowledge and initiation, are initiated into the inner meanings of the craft. To the rest, the sacred rituals will remain, as Shakespeare might say, words, words, words. Within the Mason's being is concealed the power which, blazing forth from his purified being, constitutes the secret word of God. His life is the sole password which admits him to the Masonic Lodge and the Brotherhood of Light. He shows the world only forms which means nothing, the life within forever concealed, until the eye of spirit reveals it. So, the worldly people see the worldly things. The eye of spirit sees the eye of spirit. The true Mason realises that charity is one of the greatest traits to be unfolded, not only of the regulated purse, but of charity in thought and action. He does not spend time criticising, for others are doing this, doing their best with their tools at their disposal, and so he helps them to improve their tools. The Mason does not find fault, criticise or complain. He has malice towards none, and charity to all he finds to be worthy of trust. In silence he labours, in compassion suffers, and if builders strike him, as he seeks to work with them, his last word will be a prayer for them in their darkness. The greater Mason, from labouring with the few, seeks to assist all, understanding the weakness of others, but the strength of right. So, yeah, it's kind of about being humble as well. A Mason's not self-satisfied, but the true Mason is always noted for simplicity. It says something about Masons actually being quite ashamed of their position because they can never live up to the ideals that are really required. And it says the true Mason recognises the value of seeking the truth wherever he can find it. He must search for the high things in lowly places and find the lowly things in high places. And he knows that the one who is truly the greatest is the servant of all. So there are three things that it kind of finishes with, and it says, your creed and craft demand the best in you, the sanctifying of your life to higher ideals, the regeneration of your physical body, and the purification of your mind, your soul, and the ordination of your spirit. Yours is the glorious opportunity and divine responsibility. So there we go. And then it talks about the priest of Ra, the lambskin apron that the Masons wear, which stands for the simple, the pure, and the harmless. And that comes back to motives and actions and thought again. And then it talks about the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, another one of my favourite books, and says that this introduces us to Hiram, and Hiram Abif is who the Masons refer to, which is kind of like a play on word to, apparently, to Hiram above. And this is the secret work. And then it talks about the Chaldean oracles. I think I've just ordered the Chaldean oracles actually, and because the goddess Hecate is mentioned in the Chaldean oracles a fair bit, I think, which is why I was interested in them, and I've heard them mentioned before and thought I will get that one day. And then Egyptian and natural philosophy, the Kabbalion, the Emerald Tablet, the teachings of Tahuti, all good, very interesting. And then the final thing I'll just share with you guys before the camera switches off again. What greater, nobler thing can be accomplished than the illumination of ignorance? What greater task is there than the joyous labour of service to your fellow man? And what nobler man is there than a Mason who serves his light and is himself a light unto his fellow men? So, yeah, I think I showed the Kabbalion earlier, and this is one of the ancient teachings. It's a beautiful book. It's got like a gold pages, and I bought this version, the hardback version, because I value this book so much that I thought I'm not going to get the paperback version, I'm going to get a really good version. And it's if you are interested in philosophy, you should read the Kabbalion. It's what the greatest philosophers based their philosophies on. Many of them, like Leonardo da Vinci, I think, Einstein, got his theory of relativity from the Hermetic principles. So yeah, there we have it, the lost keys of Freemasonry, and I would recommend Egyptian texts as well. And I am going to be reading this book next, which has all the beautiful the images that are Freemason imagery in it. So this is the skull and crossbones is used a lot. I read something interesting that the skull and crossbones, you know, on the Jolly Roger ships, the skull and crossbones was used by the Knights Templar, who were the early Freemasons, who guarded the Holy Land, and they used the skull and crossbones on their flags as oh right, I won't tell you what he gets up to. No, well, they do like a lot of strange rituals, but I've just basically outlined the kind of principles of living a Masonic life, what it kind of means to live a Masonic life, because I'm interested in following a Masonic life and just think that other people might be interested too. So I know my local Freemason place is recruiting at the moment. Unfortunately, I can't join because I'm a woman. I think I sort of accidentally got initiated into it. I don't even really know why. I was told that I was sort of lucky to be invited because I was a woman, and that it was a gentleman's club. But yeah, this has got loads of cool imagery in it. Oh yeah, I was going on about the skull and crossbones. So that's where the Jolly Roger comes from. The Knights Templar used a white skull and crossbones on a red flag, and this was to warn their enemies that they were coming, like, don't get in our way, basically. We are defenders of the Christian faith. And then it got kind of ripped off by pirates who put it on a black background, and it became the Jolly Roger then. But I think originally it was kind of called the Jolie Rose, which is is it the beautiful rose? And you know, the kind of the roses used in the Freemasonry, in the Rosicrucian order, which is the 33rd degree. So I think that's where the kind of Jolly Roger comes from. So just an interesting fact, and that's pretty much it from this evening. I'm going to be back soon, and I will have sorted out my camera issues, hopefully. I'm not kind of like running around the room with my little mobile phone tonight. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed the quality more this evening. I think it needed to be done, really. So if I'm ever doing spell working, I'll set you guys up near this spell altar.